Hello and welcome to Canto 7 of the Inferno. And in this canto, we will be learning about the sin of avarice. This is the fourth circle, although by the end of the canto, we'll be moving on to the fifth, Dante and his guide, Virgil. Now, avarice as a sin is an extreme, uh, of course, of monetary attitudes toward money. Okay, and it's equal to we actually see two extremes in this canto, in this circle of hell, um, because Dante is following a classical idea, which is also a Christian idea, of the doctrine of the mean, and that is that virtuous behavior is usually, not always, but in most cases, um, a balance between two extremes. We find this in Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, where when he talks about attitudes toward money, he has on the one extreme avarice, okay, too much concern with money, but the other could be just as vicious. That is, using vicious as the adjective form of vice. It could be just as much of a vice to be a spendthrift. Okay, to have no concern, perhaps, for your financial duties. So we'll see those two fighting here. The canto begins with just some babble, or babelish babble. Papa Satana lepe, which doesn't mean anything in Italian either. It is the voice of Plutus. Now Plutus is the Latin translation of the name of the Greek god of the underworld, Idoneus. Well, actually, it's more complicated than that. His epithet, his descriptive nickname was Plutus, that is the wealthy one. Okay, so Plutus is babbling with rage. What are you doing here? But Virgil says, "Hey, relax. Don't worry about him, because he cannot touch you here, because you are among the living." And so then they see the damned pushing these weights, the weights that are money bags, actually. And of course, they can't see past the weights themselves. And so Dante seems instinctively to see things in terms of clashing opposites, clashing factions. Well, no wonder. Look at the life that we described in the introduction, the Guelphs versus the Ghibellines, and then when the Guelphs won their day, then they broke into factions, and we had the black Guelphs against the white Guelphs. So here the clash is between the spendthrifts um, and the avaricious. One screaming, "Why hoard?" line 30, and the other side, "Why waste?" Um, and when they collide, of course, they start bickering, and Virgil explains that these are the avaricious. And so they don't, again, the doctrine of the measure is suggested in line 42. They could not judge with moderation, con misura, is what Dante says, with moderation when it comes to spending. Okay, so the moderation is in the middle. Again, the good is usually the mean between two extremes. I know in modern ethics we say don't be mean, but it's a different kind of mean. That's not the mean that I mean. Um, so then we hear from Fortuna, the goddess Fortuna, fortune, line 63. "You see, son, the short-lived mockery of the wealth that is in fortune's keep." Now, the goddess Fortune, the goddess Fortuna, is kind of a medieval invention. You don't find her referred to in classical sources. But Dante understood her as, Dante's day. In Dante's day, she was a goddess who simply presided over randomness. Okay, so Fortune, she spun the wheel. There is a reference to her wheel here someplace, but I can't find it. It will come to me when I least expect it. It's kind of like burritos. They come back when you least expect it. Um, but I can't find the reference to the. No, I can't find the reference to the wheel. Um, and so Virgil says Fortuna oversees the transfer of goods. Now, another thing that may surprise us about Fortuna, I already suggested the first thing, and that is that you won't find her in classical sources. But you may be surprised that you find her at all in a Catholic work. We've already seen the Muses, Dante referring to the Muses, but that's just a convenient way of speaking of the Holy Spirit. But we see that Dante has no qualms about using the names of pagan deities, even though he recently, when he was talking about Virgil, he talked about Virgil himself understanding that he believed in the lying gods, the false gods. But here, we act as if Fortuna has control over the world. Now, that's the illusion there is that, and the reason that, in fact, Dante and other Christian thinkers of his time had no qualms talking about this pagan goddess being in control of chance, um, is that, in fact, everything was subjected to God's providence. So, in fact, it was just a convenient way of speaking about the way that chance is disposed throughout the world, even though ultimately God is in charge, and God's providence then is a kind of an overarching, overseeing force over Fortuna. So that's how Dante would get around that explanation. Not really getting around it. That's simply the way he understood it. Um, so at the end of Canto 7, Dante and Virgil cross to the other side. We crossed the circle, line 100, to its other bank, passing into a spring that boils and overflows into a ditch, the spring itself cut out. Okay, so that means that by the time that Canto 8 begins, they're going to be in the fifth circle. This dingy little stream, an underground and actually underworld stream, when it had reached the bottom of the gray malignant slopes, becomes a swamp that has the name of Styx. Dante, as your footnote suggests, is following Virgil here, because Virgil first spoke of Styx not as a river. Fluminus is everybody before Virgil referred to it as a flumina, a river. But Virgil calls it Stygiamque paludem, this swamp, the Stygian swamp. Stygian is the adjective form of Styx. Um, Okay, so Canto 8 begins then with Dante looking into the distance and seeing two beacons. I must explain, however, that before we finally reached the foot of that high tower, our eyes had been attracted to its summit by two small flames we saw flare up just there. Light is constantly catching the attention of Dante. Remember, this is in hell, and so hell is dark. An ancient cliche was Stygian darkness. Again, Stygian, the adjective form of Styx. So when you're at the river Styx, you're in utter darkness. And that's where Dante and Virgil meet the Stygian boatman Phlegias rowing across the river Styx. Now, we already saw Charon, the boatman that carries the dead, the souls of the dead, into the underworld. But now we see Phlegias, another boatman. And as they're going through all of this sewer filth, this slimy shape arises from out of the muck, line 33. And this is one of the first of the creatures in this, the damned in this circle that Dante will meet. Before me there rose up a slimy shape, line 33, that said, "Who are you? Who are you who come before your time?" Of course, by before your time, he means that you're not dead yet. So how could you possibly come into the underworld? Why do you come here before your time? And I spoke back, though I come, I do not stay. But who are you in all your ugliness? You see, I am one who weeps, he answered. And then I said to him, may you weep and wail, stuck here in this place forever, you damned soul, for filthy as you are, I recognize you. Dante responds in anger. Now, anger is a sin. We're all taught that, right? Anger is a sin. But Virgil, who is the guide, not just the geographical guide in hell, but also Dante's moral guide, this is Virgil's response. He put his arm around my neck, line 43, and kissed my face and said, indignant soul, blessed is she in whose womb you were conceived. That sounds like a little extravagant place using that kind of greeting, the same greeting we used for the Virgin Mary, for Dante's mother. But but that response from Virgil is blessing the anger that he showed, because it is anger. It's righteous anger. It's the kind of anger that Christ showed when he threw the moneylenders out of the temple. Okay, this is anger at sin. It's good to be angry at sin. We saw um, uh, Augustine angry at his former self very often in the Confessions. Um, Now this Argente is attacked by the other damned souls. Get Philippi Argente! They all cried, and at those shouts the Florentine gone mad. Uh, Filippi Argente is a Florentine. That's how Dante recognized him. So it's a guy from his own hometown. We left him there, and I'll say no more about him. A wailing noise began to pound my ears. And now, my son, the gentle teacher said, this is Virgil speaking, line 67, coming closer is the city we call Dis. Now, Dis city well, it's called Dis because dite in Italian, um, but in Latin, Dis. Dis is actually a contraction of the Latin word dives, D-I-V-E-S, dives, which is a direct translation of Plutus, the Greek Plutus or Pluto, that is the wealthy one. So dives is the Latin term for the wealthy one, and so it becomes the name by which the god of the underworld is named, and by a peculiar transference that always happens with the characters of the underworld, whereas he's Hades in Greek mythology, and so the place becomes known as Hades. In Norse mythology, it's a goddess actually rather than a goddess named Hel, and so lo and behold, Hel goes from being the name of the goddess down there to the place, and the same thing happens with Dis. Dis becomes Dis city. So they approach the city of Dis, and the spirits try to isolate Dante, tell Virgil to leave. Get out! No, I'm sorry. That is the boatsman saying, get out, here is the entrance. No, this is the passage I'm looking for, line 90. You come, but he must go, who thought to walk so boldly through this realm. Let him retrace his foolish way alone. Just let him try. Now, this is really scary to Dante. Imagine you're in deepest hell, and you have a god. The only thing that keeps you halfway sane is knowing that your guide is there, Virgil is there, but Virgil swears fidelity to Dante. Do not fear the journey we are making. None can prevent. Such power did decree it. So Virgil sees the angel who can get them through the next gate, and that's where we end Canto 8. And that's also where we end this lesson. So I'd like to see you in Canto 9 when you get a chance. So please look up that video, which I'll be taping shortly. Of course, in your time, it's probably already done. So bless you, and we'll see you on the other side.